I just snorted. That was really weird. So, hey, folks, welcome to Social Media News Live. So glad that you are joining us today. I'm back in the home studio. We have an incredible guest. I'm so excited, Grace, to be back with you.
I'm glad you're back in the home studio. I think when either one of us is gone, the ones that remains behind feels untethered and
Yes,
salty.
salty and untethered. Well, maybe
Salty and
sweaty.
untethered.
Yes, right. So we've got some of our friends jumping in today already. We have the Life of Brian saying, "Good evening, all you lovely people." Let's see, my things are going a little bit slow today. What's going on? There we go. Yeah.
I got Ian Anderson Gray with his howdy, howdy, howdy. I love Ian. He always speaks to us in our language, Jeff.
Talked about a salty person, salty Brit right there.
He is not salty. He's the opposite of salty. He's so sweet.
And our friend Martin Buckland, he actually has already posted. He's very excited about this topic. He's a big LinkedIn person. He says, "Good morning from Toronto." Martin, thank you for joining us today. I'm sure you're going to ask some great questions because he already did in some of the posts. And so what is this from Eric? Oh, let's turn on our brains. I don't know why he did a double line like that.
Were they off?
Yes.
Oh no, because the title of our show is Creator Mode On.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
And Chris Stone says Jeff C. Grace Duffy and Jeff C. mode on. All right, so we've got Amazon Live going. We are ready to get started. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Make sure you ask your questions of Kate because I saw her speak last week. Yeah, last week and Lima. It just seems like it's flown. And she's amazing. So make sure you ask your questions. This is all a deep dive about LinkedIn, so this is going to be amazing. Make sure you do us a favor and sprinkle the love across the interwebs if you would. And also, even if they're not here, call in your friends. Like if they hey, I've been wanting to update my LinkedIn, this is the show for you. So mention them down below. Call them in. Even if they can't watch it live, they can check out the replay. So I'll get started. Grace, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine and we'll get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And I'm Grace Duffy, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on the world of social media and more. And on today's show, we have our friend Kate Payne, and we're exploring how to use LinkedIn Creator Mode to expand your reach and influence on LinkedIn. And I'm not talking about as an influencer, although there's nothing wrong with that, but as a thought leader and as an expert, positioning yourself as an expert in your field. We're also going to talk about how to set up Creator Mode, what you need to do to get started, and some updates that LinkedIn has been actively rolling out to Creator Mode.
Kate, I'm so excited. She impressed me so much on stage. Yeah. I never saw her speak before at Lima, so I'm so excited to share her with you because you guys are just going to love her. So, Kate, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm really, truly so excited to be with both of you on this show. I've been watching your show for a long time. I've met Grace through a couple things that we've been on panels together. And so it's really cool to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know who Kate is, I am so happy to introduce her to you. She is the founder and president of Standing Out Online, where she helps authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs, executives, and independent professionals stand out online to become recognized authorities in their industry. As a personal branding consultant, she has a knack for helping them discover their personal story and how to weave it into their professional brand. She's also a LinkedIn profile coach, and she's here today to talk to us all about it. So make sure you guys ask your questions.
Pepper me with questions.
That's right.
So there are a lot of jokes. Okay, before we get started, there are a lot of jokes about how people present themselves on LinkedIn versus everywhere else on the internet. And I'm talking about like the overtop, bloviating, salesy, fake guru, inspirational, aspirational. The one example I saw today was like someone that's a TikToker, like someone who does really well. They're like, I'm an experimental video creator. And I'm like, well, that's true. But there's just something funny about that. Meanwhile, there's a lot of folks who just treat LinkedIn as an online resume and only get fired up about it when they get into job hunt mode, meaning infrequently. And so it's hard to kind of ditch that resume talk, as you put it, that resume talk when it goes on LinkedIn and truly start showing up as that real person mixing in your professional. So what is the first step, I guess, before we go into creator mode about breaking out of this resume talk and being a more consistent human being on LinkedIn, or consistent and a human being on LinkedIn? We are all consistently human. Sorry.
Yes, we are. Thank goodness. So what I really want people to see is like, LinkedIn is no longer just a job seeking platform. I mean, admittedly, when it was founded way back in 2003, that's what it was used for. And now LinkedIn is really a great marketing platform. It's a personal branding platform. It's a relationship building platform. Um, I mentioned to you guys before we got on, I'm good friends with Vivica von Rosen, who is
Mhm.
literally the at LinkedIn expert and a dear friend. And Vivica, as well as some of us, have said when you're on LinkedIn, see yourself as a resource versus a resume. So you can still have your, chronological experience to show your credential and why you are who you are in your world and your industry, but also be bringing in some aspect of like that human part of you. Because in this day and age now, we need to show that human side also with our professional side. And so there's kind of a way you can finesse that on LinkedIn.
Very, very cool. So we're going to dive deeper into that today, but I'll tell you something else. Somebody who's consistent and human. Look at the segue. I'm just so good. Is our friends over at Ecamm. You can find out more about them at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. They have got a ton of cool stuff going on. They have this giveaway they're doing today through June 30th. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, here it is. If you go to ecamm.tv, that's ecamm.tv/CAW giveaway. That's Customer Appreciation Week. They got a bunch of cool giveaways they're doing. You guys need to go check that out. They've got merch deals on their sites right now at merch.ecamm.com. They've got a new Discord server. If you go to ecamm.tv/Discord, and they got Demo Mode Pros Season 2 has started. It's a weekly show on YouTube, and they also have this brand new show that's really, really cool called Marshall Creates, and it's every Thursday now. It started this Thursday, and you can find all about this stuff at the Ecamm Live community. Just do a search for Ecamm Live community on Facebook. They have an incredible group. I wasn't really teasing when I said they're very consistent and human. They're an amazing group over there, so you guys need to go check them out over on Facebook. And also make sure that you check them out at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. All right, so that's out of the way. So I want to talk to you a little bit more, Grace, and I know you're going to kick off the segment because you had a ton of questions. You were like, get out of the way, Jeff. I'm a-coming. All right.
I love that you sent me all these questions. It was awesome. I'm like, these are really in-depth questions. I'm excited.
Grace is amazing. She is my superpower. I mean, she is the superpower of the show. I just show up. They just leave the door open and I just walk in.
Okay, so. Jeff hardly just show up. This is a team effort. It is me and Jeff. But I like to just give people the same treatment I like, which is like I like to know going ahead of something what I'm going to be talking about. And today is all about creator mode. So everyone wants a piece of the creator economy, LinkedIn included. They're not going to sleep on this. March 2021, LinkedIn launched creator mode. And if you're like me, you're probably just like, okay, what is this? I don't know. I'm just here to like give endorsements and, recommend Jeff. So anyway, but we heard that, at the time they said it allows professionals to function like influencers. What does that mean? Well, apparently I'm the only one that doesn't really get it because according to LinkedIn, more than 10 million users have enabled it so far. 10 million users. Now you talk about, Kate, that creator mode is the biggest untapped functionality and that it opens the door for growth because it gives you instant access to tools, features, and helps you grow your audience base. And I'm like, LinkedIn, why didn't you tell me that in the first place? I probably would have gotten on it. But for those like me that did not understand this and did not understand its power, what is LinkedIn Creator Mode and who has access to it?
Well, LinkedIn Creator Mode, as you said, came out in March of 2021. And when it first came out, there was all this like talk that it's coming out. And all of us who are like LinkedIn geeks were like, woohoo. And then it came out and it was like, you get to add 5 hashtags that will show up in the introduction card of your profile. Like, oh, cool. Is that it? And then supposedly our topics, our posts, our content was going to be served up more by the LinkedIn algorithm. But there's really no way to really prove that. In fact, some people said in the very beginning when they turned it on, they saw their content engagement go down. So there was a lot of, it's been going kind of all over the place. And I would say that creator mode has really become more functional and more popular and more meaningful in the last just few months. So one thing you can do is add 5 hashtags. If you choose to turn it on, then you add 5 hashtags, which are topics that you generally talk about. And then going forward in your posts, you would use those hashtags in your posts that you have listed in your introduction card. They show up where your name, your headline, and then you see them underneath. They're still not clickable yet from your profile, but I have a feeling that's probably coming. It would make sense that it would, but they're not clickable yet. So the other thing is, though, is that now it gives you instant access to LinkedIn newsletters and LinkedIn Live, which is LinkedIn's live streaming video. And you used to, before Creator Mode came, you used to have to apply for LinkedIn Live through an application on LinkedIn. To give you an example, I got it like 3 years ago, but I had 5 applications and it took me 9 months before I received it. But now if you turn on Creator Mode, you have instant access to LinkedIn Live. No more of that application baloney. And you get newsletters. And that's where you can really get some functionality. The other thing that's coming, and it's being rolled out right now, is LinkedIn Audio. So that is basically like LinkedIn's equivalent of Clubhouse, but way better. I've been in some of the beta tests on that, not where I could be a guest, not where I could start. So LinkedIn Audio is coming, and I think that's going to be another game changer.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the difference between traditional LinkedIn versus LinkedIn Creator Mode. Now, LinkedIn Live, that's a no-brainer. Like, I was lucky enough, I had my friend, I think Jim Fuse and some other people help me get that really early on. In fact, we go there. We go there. We're there right now because we have a lot of people watching, like Eric Fisher and Chris was watching. But the newsletters thing, I feel like I'm getting spammed all the time right now with these people asking me to be on their newsletter list. So I'm going to do a little side move here. Sorry, Grace. But how effective are newsletters? Because I'm like, unless I really know the person, I'm like, okay, they have really good content. I know, like, if like Chris and Jim Fuse from Dealcaster said, hey, this is going to be specifically a newsletter about Amazon Live, I would join that because I would want to know more. But I'm getting all these kind of random people that I've met asking me to join their list, and it's just getting a little bit overwhelming. So what are best practices?
When it rolled out and opened up, it opened up in about January. Mm-hmm. And so everybody was like, oh, shiny new object on LinkedIn. I've got newsletters. Newsletters has actually been around on LinkedIn for a while, but it was only available to like the Richard Bransons and the Brene Browns of the world.
Right.
And then they opened it up to the average user. Okay. So what happened was everybody was like, oh, I can start a newsletter, because when you do start your first newsletter on LinkedIn, LinkedIn automatically sends that newsletter out to all of your first level connections. That like they do it for you. And so that's what happened, is that everybody was like, newsletters, I'm going to do one. And then that first one goes out. So of course everybody did it. I will be honest with you. I want to do a newsletter. I've been wanting to do one for years, but I already planned when it first came out that I wasn't going to start it till Q3, because I knew this would happen. I knew that everybody would jump on the bandwagon. Right. And it would flood everybody's inbox, which is exactly what you said.
Right.
So I kind of like to wait for things. I'm one of those people that like waits for things to kind of calm down a little bit. But you can choose to ignore or accept. So the people that you want to see their content, obviously accept it. But I can go further into how newsletters can get you traction and get you leads too, if you want, when we get to that.
So, Grace, can we talk a little? We got a little bit of time, and I wanted to give a shout out to
Chris.
Go
ahead.
Chris Stone said, I guess we need to spam Jeff with newsletter subscribe requests. Now, you wouldn't be spamming me. I would do it. Jim. Go ahead and talk about it just really quick, and we may have you back for another show just about newsletters, but go ahead and give us a little overview.
So I'll give you a quick example. I had a client who started a newsletter in February, and her first newsletter, she got about like 250 subscribers right off the bat. Yeah. Then she did the second month and she got another 300 or so. So she's had her newsletter up for about 4 or 5 months now. So what she did, and this is what she and I kind of worked on together and we tested it, is I said, well, you can see who your subscribers are. So you can click on it and see who's subscribed. Go and like send certain people, look at their profiles, see if those people might be prospects for you. Send them a message saying, hey, thanks so much for subscribing to my newsletter, and start a conversation, right? Start building that relationship. So she did that. Then she was looking, she's like, you know what? I want to get on more podcasts. I'm going to see if people who are subscribed to my newsletter have podcasts. She found a number of them and messaged them, and she got 3 podcast invitations. So she was nurturing those people who were subscribing to her newsletter and building relationships with them without being salesy and pitching them something. Mm-hmm. And then now she just reported to me a couple weeks ago that she's gotten 3 new clients just from doing this reach out via her newsletter subscribers.
Very cool.
Wow.
It's just like anything. You got to work the tool. The tool's not going to just magically bring you things unless you put a little effort into it.
So there was a question here, going back to you made a comment about when you have creator mode, you get LinkedIn Live.
Yes.
So if you turn on creator mode, does that mean even if you didn't have LinkedIn Live before, now you do have it if you have creator mode? Because you can still, because I think people are still having a hard time getting a link like LinkedIn Live. So I wanted to clarify that. Like, is this just a fast track to getting LinkedIn Live if you don't have it?
Well, yeah, because you get instant access to it. The thing is with LinkedIn Live that people need to know is it's not like Facebook Live where you can be out walking around and you can just take your phone and start doing a live. You actually, on LinkedIn, if you're going to use LinkedIn Live, you actually have to have a third-party app in order to stream. And there are 5 apps, one of which is Restream.
Yep.
Another one is StreamYard. And then there's like Switcher and I don't remember the others. But you have to sign up for one of those apps in order to be actually able to stream live on your LinkedIn Live. And so a lot of people don't realize that. So I think they think it's an instant live where you push a button somewhere and you go live, and it's not. You do have to have that app first. And that's really important to know.
That is important.
So before we get to the next question, I want to bring up this one from our friend Gary Stockton. He goes, so can you migrate the list from LinkedIn over to your own email platforms?
So just to be clear, Gary, do you
newsletters.
mean like take your list, like you mean when you say your list from LinkedIn, you mean your subscriber, the people who subscribe?
I'm assuming that's what it means.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you could, but you shouldn't just because of the issues around being cool about email platforms
right.
and not taking your contacts. So what I've advised though to kind of do it a little bit differently, switch that a little bit. If you are already putting out a newsletter through traditional methods through your email client, you could also repurpose that newsletter, or if you're doing a blog, repurpose that blog over on the LinkedIn newsletter, create one and repurpose the same content there. You're going to get some duplicate people, but you're also going to get new people who aren't already on your newsletter because they're going to be people in your connections, your first level connections that aren't necessarily on your email list. So I've been suggesting for people to get extra traction by repurposing either their existing newsletter or an existing blog.
Ooh, that's mic drop there. That's worth. We can just stop the show now. That's a really good really good tip. Yeah, that's great.
Bye.
All right, great.
It sounds very quiet during that, so you can get a clear cut for social media for your repurposing, Jeff.
There you go.
Jeff is a repurposing wizard. So
I
want to call out
why I
Gary
loved his talk last week.
I know, he's all about it. And so Gary has this comment. He says that I'm super excited about LinkedIn audio. So tell us a little bit about that. We talked about a little bit about these profile enhancements, these updates, but can you give us more insight into this LinkedIn audio? Now, Jeff and I were preparing for the show, and we kind of had this moment of just like, weren't they already doing audio, or what were they doing? So clear the slate. Tell us what do we need to know about audio and LinkedIn?
Well, it's my understanding that LinkedIn has been working on LinkedIn audio even before Clubhouse came out. They've been working on this for a while. And it was interesting when I got into Clubhouse a year ago, like January, February of 2021, and I was checking out Clubhouse, all these people from LinkedIn corporate were in these LinkedIn topic rooms. And I'm like, oh, they're testing, they're watching. And which is totally normal. So we thought it would come out sooner. So it's been in beta for 6 months, and there were only like 100 people who were given access to it. And so some of the people I knew in my world, and I could go in as a guest. So it's very Clubhouse-esque, very Clubhouse-like, except what I love about it the most is that when you click on somebody that's in the room, it takes you to their LinkedIn profile. And you couldn't get that level of information, if you were on Clubhouse and looked at someone's, you'd get their little, bio in the app. So I liked it better. The quality is good. I've also read through some other content that fellow LinkedIn people have shared is that they might even be bringing a video component into this too. Not LinkedIn Live, but something that's going to be a social type LinkedIn video, like almost like the LinkedIn audio, but with video too. So I don't know about that, but LinkedIn audio is getting rolled out right now. It is out of beta. I am a total geek. I check every day, multiple times a day, because I'm super excited to get that. And then we're all going to get spammed with LinkedIn audios, right?
Right.
So, but I'm still really excited to get it. And the cool thing about it too is whether it's a LinkedIn Live or LinkedIn Audio, you can create an event in LinkedIn, and the events feature is really pretty robust. You can actually follow hashtag LinkedIn events on LinkedIn and see all of the LinkedIn events that people are having, especially if they're virtual. You can see in person as well. But that's what's going to end up happening with audio too, is you'll create an event when you do LinkedIn Audio. So I do not have it yet, so I can't talk about it from the standpoint as a moderator. So that's pretty much all I know about it right now, but I think it's going to be a huge game changer.
I think the ability of being able to schedule it is a huge game changer, because I know some of the, even with Spaces and Clubhouse, you kind of just had to be there in the moment. But it's like, well, if I'd known you were going to do this, I would have cleared my life, cleared my schedule, right? But so I think that that's a powerful tool.
And I think
one thing I want to know about is, like, on Clubhouse, you could bring 20 people on stage. It's like everybody was bringing their friends. I don't know if that's going to happen as much, because I think that was a thing that a lot of people were annoyed about by Clubhouse, is that you wanted to be brought up on stage to ask your question, but you never could because there were so many people already in there.
Yeah, and a lot of times they were doing a pitch, right at the beginning. And so, but I think this, to me, this makes sense. The audio makes sense for LinkedIn, because Clubhouse, to me, what the groups that I were in were very business networking based, and that seems that kind of platform would do really, really well to me on LinkedIn. So,
yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see how that'll play out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, especially if you can record it and use it as a podcast later, because repurposing, that's what I want to.
That's what I'm looking into, because I do a webcast, a monthly webcast, and I'm curious if I could do it as a LinkedIn Audio and figure out how to do it concurrently. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But
we'll talk. I think I can help you out with that.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's go. So people are like, okay, creator mode, I'm sold. How do I get it? Do I have it? So can you briefly walk us through the steps of setting up creator mode? Because I know I got LinkedIn Live and I just kind of turned stuff on, and I'm like, I probably did it all wrong. So walk us through the steps of what we need to do to set up creator mode.
Okay, so when you're in your profile, you literally scroll down just like a little ways in, and you'll have what's called like a dashboard, or it says resources. And right at the top of resources, it'll say creator mode off. It's defaults to off. And you literally click it to on. You just click on it, and you'll go in, and LinkedIn will ask you to put in 5 topics, which will be hashtags. So think that through. Don't just willy-nilly pick 5. Pick 5 of the things that you really talk about. And then you'll see that you have access to LinkedIn Live and LinkedIn newsletters. And then if you choose to go further with those, then you can literally just click on them and start doing that. But with LinkedIn Live, again, you have to get that third-party app to stream. LinkedIn newsletters, you can pretty much start right off the bat, but have a plan for this. Like, have a strategy for how you're going to do this. Is it once a month? Is it weekly? Is it bi-weekly? Figure that all that out, so that whatever you put out there has a plan. And if you're repurposing what you already have, even easier. And that's pretty much it, Jeff. It's just literally turning it on. One of the things that people don't realize is that once you turn creator mode on, your connect button that's on your profile automatically changes to a follow button. So people can still connect with you, but it's a 2-step process. But if people see the follow, they're following you, which does not mean they're direct level connections, but they can get notifications of your content. And there's nothing you can do to switch that, because some people are like, I'd prefer to have the connect button and be visible, but you can't. So that does automatically happen.
But like if you're a creator like I am, and you want people to get notified about my lives, having the follow button is the right way to do it, right?
Yeah. There's also something else that has nothing to do with creator mode. Is if you go to someone's profile and you see a bell in the upper right section of their profile, which is under the banner on the right side across from the name. If there's a bell there, you can also click on that bell, and you will be notified every time that someone posts content from that person. You will be notified by clicking the bell. So follow and the bell kind of do the same thing. But the reason it turns into follow button is because you turn on creator mode. The bell is separate.
So do you have the bell and be the creator? Like if
so everybody has the bell. Everybody goes, I don't see the bell on my profile. You won't see it on your own profile. You only see it on other people's profiles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys see the bell, see if I'm bell worthy, go ahead and click that. So We'll just,
Go,
I'll
go
know who
ring
you
Jeff's
are.
bell.
Yes,
Go ring
go
Jeff's
ring
bell.
my bell. I've had my
Yep.
bell rung a couple of times. So let's talk about, okay, now we've got creator mode. What do we do? You talk on, and Lima was all about this, how to grow your reach and influence with LinkedIn creator mode. So how do we create better content? I know I need help with this. So we've got all the steps. We did everything you said to get it set up. What do we do next, like, to make this work?
So where you get traction with creator mode the way it is right now would be to consider doing a newsletter or doing LinkedIn Live. Okay. Because that's really where you can get some traction. LinkedIn Live, if you're going to do that, maybe you're going to create some type of a show. I created a show about 4 years ago before LinkedIn Live even existed, and I would upload native video. And my show is called Coffee with Kate. I do it once a month. I have a guest, and I would, when LinkedIn video came out, you could only upload a native video no longer than 10 minutes. So I would do this short little webcast, like interview, upload it as a native video, hoping that live would come about. So when live came about, now my show is like 30, 45 minutes once a month. But I have a plan for it, and I plan it out. I plan out my guests. I have a plan for the type of content I want to put out and how I can serve my network. So think about what you want to be doing. Don't just, you can turn it on and then plan it out. But the other thing is too, is when you turn it on, LinkedIn tells us this, and I still take a little bit of this with a grain of salt, is that your content is supposed to be served up more by LinkedIn's algorithm because you've turned creator mode on. We have been testing this like crazy. Sometimes it spikes, sometimes it doesn't. So we can't kind of come up with like a definite. LinkedIn says that's the case. I've seen an uptick, but I've also been I've been more diligent about posting more often. I used to be like a 3 time a week poster, but now I'm going to like 5 days a week. And I've been doing that for about 2 months, and I'm definitely seeing an uptick in my impressions. So, again, it has to, you should have a plan for this, but putting out content that educates people or inspires people, or sharing other people's content with your thought leadership on it, and then some self-promotion about your event or your thing or your service, all a combination of those is where you can really get traction in creating content on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
So we have a question from Martin Buckland, who I believe is joining us from LinkedIn. He says, "I'm not in creator mode and go live on LinkedIn with LinkedIn Live several times a week. If I go creator mode, will I have more views on my LinkedIn Live?" Good question.
That is a great question. And I honestly don't know. I would say I would err on the side of saying yes, because if you turn creator mode on, that's part of LinkedIn's promise to you, is that your content will be seen more. The other new thing, which just made me think of this, Martin, thank you, is that one of the new things rolling out right now is that when you do a LinkedIn Live, it's going to show up in the feed when you're live. It didn't used to do that. So like on Facebook, if there's a Facebook Live, you see it in the feed. With LinkedIn Live, you would only see it if you had the event, but now it's going to be showing up in the feed. So that's going to help be bringing more viewers to your LinkedIn Lives as well.
Very cool.
And I got that straight from LinkedIn like a week or two ago in their marketing blog.
Awesome. So when you're going live and you have the description, the title, or I know that when we schedule things through Restream, there's the title and then you'll have the description. Is there anything we can use in LinkedIn to just make sure we're attracting the right audience, or attracting the right people? You mentioned the hashtags aren't clickable, but is there something else we can do I hate to use the word SEO because I focus on YouTube, so that's the word I'm thinking about, but that's not right. Just how do you get it in front of the right people?
Well, one of the things you can do through the event feature is you can invite your connections. There's literally an invite button after you set up the event. So I do that all the time. I'll go through and I'll find, I will go through my connections, or I'll think of people who I know would be interested in that topic. And I will literally send them the invite to the event for my LinkedIn Live. And I get a lot of people that way. The other thing you can do is if you have a guest, you can tag your speaker, and so that they can share that event too, and they can invite people also. So that's where you can get some of that, domino effect kind of thing to get more people in there. But once you set up the event, absolutely be sure to go in and invite your connections. They'll get a notification in their notifications, just like where they get the newsletter or the invitations to connect. They'll get that notification there.
Cool.
Absolutely. So
did that answer your question, Grace?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that
Okay.
was Martin's question. So Martin, you
Oh,
let
Mark's
us know
question. Sorry.
yeah, Martin, let us know if there was anything else you wanted to add to that. We'll bring it up. But I'm going to move on to my next question, which is as I was doing research on how people are using creator mode on LinkedIn, I stumbled upon this really interesting use case. So there are these two guys, Colin and Samir, Colin Rosenblum and Samir Chaudhry, and they
Mhm.
have their niche is all about creators, helping creators for creators, and they have a YouTube channel, and this is also a podcast that's distributed on all the major podcast platforms. They mentioned Apple and Spotify specifically, and they offer advice for aspiring influencers who are hoping to professionalize, I guess, monetize their online careers and making it a full time gig, right? So
Okay.
being on YouTube, being on these major podcast platforms, you think that's it. Like this is where I need to be. But it was specifically announced that this pair are using their LinkedIn presence to interact directly with their followers, making sure that their fan facing features are available through LinkedIn creator mode specifically. So even though they're on YouTube, they've got all this podcast, they've got their podcast distributing everywhere. They're still the way to talk to them is to find them on LinkedIn. And I was wondering if like that's such an interesting use case. Are there
That's
any other
cool.
really cool use cases that you've seen like, what other use cases have you seen for LinkedIn Creator? But I was just very fascinated that, like, I mean, it's like you're doing well on YouTube. They were mentioned in the show as being like, um, being it, right? And
Yeah.
then there's still, but LinkedIn is where you go to talk to them.
Yes. Well, I'm seeing more and more people doing that too. I'm seeing just overall, I'm seeing a lot more people finally taking LinkedIn more seriously now because I think they're just seeing that the reach you can get if you're using the tool well and you're putting out really helpful, unique, valuable content and building conversations that's working. I hadn't heard obviously, but that LinkedIn use case, but that you just shared, but that's incredible. It's kind of similar to that newsletter example I gave you with the client I had who was really working that subscriber list to build connections with and create conversations, leads, but in a way that's not salesy and pitchy and spammy. So I don't know if I can offer much more than to that than just to say I think that's really cool, and it just is another affirmation to me that people are taking the value of that they can get reach through LinkedIn, like it's really working, and that's
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
meaningful there.
Very, very cool. So I mean, it's just fascinating that people are using that as a communication channel. Um, and there's some other stuff that, Fast Company said, since first launching Creator Mode last March, we've been excited to see the rapid adoption of our suite of creator tools, everything from newsletters to audio events to enhanced analytics. This is the product lead for creator strategy at LinkedIn, talking to Fast Company. They said what's most exciting to watch is how creators are leveraging the different content tools to tell their stories in their own unique ways to spark member engagement. And that really caught Grace and I's eye because thinking about how to engage people on LinkedIn, a lot of times we just kind of, there's links that are dumped, there's just blog posts that are dumped. So I would love to know your advice of like ways to create content that sparks member engagement on LinkedIn. And I'm not really like, hey, drop a question in and see what happens. I mean, what are some ways that we can like engage people and continue or create conversations directly on that platform?
Well, one of the things that we've been reading a lot about recently is, and we've been getting some hints from LinkedIn about this as far as their algorithm goes, is that you can actually not only do you want to be putting out the content that I've just been talking about, the meaningful, helpful, educational content, but also to be commenting on other people's posts
Mm,
and building conversations there. LinkedIn has just said that their algorithm is going to be rewarding people more for commenting. So not just commenting and saying, "Hey Jeff, great show."
right.
"Hey Jeff, great show. I really liked it when you talked to Kate about da 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 da. I'm using it." Like really make an effort to be commenting on other people's posts in a thoughtful, meaningful way. I've been directly testing this probably for the last month or so. And I'm getting so many more people sending me connection requests just because I've been interacting with their content. So it's not always what you're initiating, but it's the part about being part of that conversation and being in the engagement and really engaging there too. One of the things we've also read about too is as far as sharing other people's content in LinkedIn. Last year we had there's a guy that you might want to follow. He's in the Netherlands. He's actually lives in Spain, I think, but he's from the Netherlands. His name is Richard Vanderblom, Vanderblom, and he puts out a lot of content. He and his company do a lot of in-depth research into LinkedIn's algorithm, and every year they put out their sort of algorithm report from the standpoint of testing. It's not LinkedIn's algorithm report because that's the secret sauce. But Richard reported last year that if you shared people's content, LinkedIn's algorithm didn't like it because people would just share it with no comment. But now they're saying if you share it with a thoughtful, thought leadership type comment with it about why you're sharing it, why you like it, maybe tagging the appropriate people, then that content is getting phenomenal reach right now. So that's where you can really start to build more of that traction in the conversation side.
So I love that because I think that, I've seen it work for me the technique has worked for years. And the key is not to go and just make some goofy comment, but actually go, like you were saying, is like, hey, I really like what you said about this and this. Right. What do you think about this? And continue those conversations. I have now, with connections to LinkedIn, some really high level people at Disney, Imagineers, because I've gone to their posts and there's a new thing that was opening at the park or something. And it's just amazing the connections that you can make by doing that. In fact, I've said this before, but I can trace that I produced Guy Kawasaki's podcast and all the stuff that I've done with him from back in the Google Plus days. There's your Google Plus reference.
Oh my God, back in those days.
Yeah. By making a comment, a thoughtful comment on Paige Fitzpatrick's post, which she runs all his Guy's stuff, and having a relationship develop out of that to lead to work, 10, 15 years down the road. So it just works. And so I understand why LinkedIn is like, hey, we're going to get behind this and do it that way. So
building the conversation, that the algorithm, and even LinkedIn has shared this, it's okay to like and share, but if you comment, we're going to see that as more meaningful content, and we're going to serve that up more. The algorithm's going to see, okay, this is popular content. This is meaningful content. And so I've seen when I've been doing the commenting even more in a more meaningful way, almost immediately I see the profile view. So-and-so looked at my profile, or they've sent me a connection. And that's just kind of like natural old fashioned networking. You're creating a conversation.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
So this is back to Grace's point with her about her SEO. Is there anything that we should is there certain types of topics or things that do well on LinkedIn, or should you just stay in your lane and talk about what you want to talk about, or should you be like, oh, LinkedIn's really highlighting this on the algorithm now, you should bring up this?
Stay in your lane. Because if you're trying to build your influence and thought leadership, then stay in your lane, stay in what you're talking about. That doesn't mean that you can't still put content out there about other things, but I don't know. I don't go after the trends. I post a lot about LinkedIn, so if there's new features, I've got instant content, but I also talk a lot about personal branding. And so I put a lot of content out about personal branding, or I share other people who are really well known about personal branding, like Mark Schaefer, for example.
Right.
I'll share a lot of Mark's comments or his podcast, his Marketing Companion podcast, with my thought leadership on it. So I just feel that is just the best way to do it. Stay in your lane, because people will get to know you for that. People will understand that that's what you stand for. And then you're creating top of mind awareness for yourself. So not only are you making the content meaningful, but you're also, you're also supporting your personal brand so that people know you for that.
Very, very cool.
So Martin has a question about, or a question based on your comment about comments, impactful comments, in-depth in comments, really elevating your content and elevating your platform. And he asks, are comments made on LinkedIn picked up by the algorithm? I have my experience with it, but I'm going to let you answer it first.
Okay. Because you're the expert. So I don't know for sure, because again, that's their secret sauce. I would think that if people are putting meaningful comments in the comments section, because if you have to create the event for LinkedIn Live, and then the event lives in LinkedIn and it lives as a replay. So any comments that are made on that should absolutely be catching the algorithm's attention. I can't say for sure, but I would think that they would. Now, what happens with comments on a LinkedIn Live, as we are doing right now, is you're getting all those comments and questions in the chat, or people might be because they were in live and they're going, "Hey Jeff, hey Grace, good to see you." But on the replay is usually when you can get a lot more meaningful comments, because like if I have a speaker, I'll say to people, come back to the replay, go into the comments and ask a question and tag the speaker. And so then there's a longer shelf life for that episode, and it usually happens after the live, which is where I think the more meaningful comments would come into play.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. And then if you look at Social Media News Lives, our LinkedIn profile, it's all of the videos that Jeff has repurposed and edited. And so, we have the live, but then we also have like the clips and the comments or, different things that we've called out. And that's another way that we've used LinkedIn Live to generate more engagement, more comments. But I was also going to add to this, my experience on LinkedIn is that if Kate was to, because I follow Kate on LinkedIn, we're connected, and she highlights an article, then I see that she's highlighted that article, and then anyone else that comments that, it'll say like, oh, this person commented, and then you see their comments, and you just, so I find that it's a very subtle way to network, because then you just see what other people are saying, and then you're like, oh, that's someone I want to connect to or whatever. So there is a way that it helps elevate, at least in my experience of LinkedIn. And I used to find it kind of like, oh, I don't really care what that person has to say, but then you're like, oh, I do care what that person has to say. Like, that was very insightful. Or
well,
that's our whole relationship, actually, because she's like, oh, I should really care what Jeff says.
I do care what Jeff says. I care so much.
Well, the nice thing too is that LinkedIn's getting much better about notifications now. So like, even if you make a comment and somebody replies to your comment, that's something we've been seeing a lot. In fact, even when you like, even if you click the bell on somebody, LinkedIn's giving you like this little pop-up about it and like what to do with it. Like they're giving you more pop-ups like, hey, start a post about this if you're making a comment. It kind of happens randomly, but it just tells me that LinkedIn is really paying attention. The algorithm's really paying attention to the conversations that are happening there.
Very cool.
I really think it's a focus for them right now.
Yeah. Okay. So this is gold. I need to finish the show, and then I'll go back and fix my LinkedIn. So that's what we'll do. Stay on task, Jeff. Stay on task. By the way,
turn on creator mode. Turn on creator mode.
Yeah. So Gary asked real quick before I move to this next section. He goes, "Where is the show streaming on LinkedIn?" It should be streaming on, I think, Grace's profile, my profile, and our page, but I'm not sure about our page. But I think even the cool thing about using Restream is that we're able to share our links with our guest, and they can actually share it to their LinkedIn as well. So very, very cool stuff with LinkedIn pairs. Just a little shout out to our friends over at Restream. I
used it, by the way, when you sent me the email yesterday, Grace. I did the pairs, and so it's going to my LinkedIn Live right now, and it's going to my Facebook.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't connect it to our social media live one, but it's on Jeff's and it's on mine. But then all the clips and recaps and stuff, the things that I don't want to say really matter, but the stuff that like really calls out like the gold that we're getting from these shows. That's where
one thing that people might not realize either is that when you go live on a LinkedIn Live and people go to your profile, your banner at the top turns into the live.
Yeah.
You can't hear the audio right off the bat, but when you click on it, then it goes into audio and it goes in with all the comments. But it shows up in the banner of your profile, which is really cool.
Yes, I wish more platforms did the same thing, because I think that is really, really cool. And it's very, very noticeable if you're going through and you see somebody, it's like, whoa, oh, they're live.
Yeah, and it's big. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a little tiny thing. It's a big, I discovered that when, as I was, working for Restream, something I discovered along the way. And I was like, oh my God, this is so powerful. Yeah. Untapped resource, this LinkedIn. This LinkedIn is amazing.
Speaking about resources, don't forget about socialmedianewslive.com/eCam, our friends over there, where they're doing all sorts of cool stuff with their Customer Appreciation Week. You can go to ecam.tv/CAW giveaway. They've got a ton of stuff going on for a couple more days. I think it ends on the 30th, but make sure to check them out. And we also would love for you to go to check them out at socialmedianewslive.com/eCam. Supporting them helps support this show, so we appreciate all you guys who go over there and give them a look. So we're gonna go right. I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time because I know Grace would just flail me alive if I did not let her ask these questions. We're gonna be talking about personal branding because if you saw the post, Grace says she wants to know what she wants to be when she grows up, and she wants to ask Kate that. And so I've just given up. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but yeah. So we're gonna talk about this. Grace's favorite topic. So Grace, I will shut up and let you go.
Oh, whatever. Jeff wanted to add to that, and Jeff doesn't know either. So, by
That's
the way,
right. Yeah.
so I want to talk about personal branding. I wanted to wrap up today's show because you are the founder and the driving force behind standing out online. And don't we all want to stand out online? And so, when it comes to personal branding, how do you get started with your personal branding story if you haven't, or you don't know what you want to be known for, or for example, you do a lot of things and you have lot of different interests, like, Jeff and I talk a lot about like what are the things we really stand for, and we talk about a lot of things, but like for Jeff, the big things he talks about every show is like community and repurposing, and I tend to talk about runs of shows, so and production, but that's not exactly what I want my personal brand to be. So how do you kind of do that, like, mind work of knowing what it is that you want to be known for?
Oh, I love that question. So, first of all, your personal brand, think about before you get to the story piece, think about your personal brand side. So, usually it's like what is my superpower? What is my niche in what I do in my industry? So, think about what other people say to you. Like when they say, "Hey, I so loved working with you on this project. You were really good at fill in the blank." Like listen to what other people are saying about your talents and skills because those are part of your brand. What I always say is that, like, it's how you see yourself and it's how others see you. And then it kind of does the Venn diagram, and whatever overlaps in the middle is kind of your personal brand. And, people say, do I go around and talk about, like, say, this is my personal brand? Like, you don't walk up to somebody in a networking room and go, hey, I'm Kate Payne and this is my personal brand. It's something that you kind of need to know in your core. You need to understand, like, what you represent, how you want people to remember you when you've walked away, kind of a first impression thing. But then what is it that you know about? What's in your staying in your own lane, the topic that you know. Once you kind of have an understanding of that, then what I suggest is like try to come up with like a nugget of your personal story, like literally a few sentences. Like in my LinkedIn profile, for example, in my about section, I start out with I was an avid news junkie in seventh grade. And what I do is I go into the fact that I wanted to be, when I grew up, at the time, a broadcast journalist. And I ended up getting an internship at CBS Evening News with Dan Rather way back in the 80s. And that experience made me realize I didn't want to be in front of the camera, but behind the camera doing research, writing, and basically storytelling. And so that's kind of what I do now, like when I work with my clients and I help them with their personal brand development and their story. So if you kind of think about your story piece and incorporate that into your personal brand, then you make your personal brand unique. So your story is personal, but it should tie into the professional. Like there should be a
Right.
story arc.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of the starting point to really solidify that personal brand because everybody's known for something, but that story part makes your brand unique.
Mm.
Ooh.
Very
See,
good.
I love that. I talked about that at Momentum at Disney last year. So that is, I think, is we all here to do our elevator pitch, right? Like, but that's not what connects you to other people. It's your story. And I wanted to highlight, Kate mentioned it a little bit, but you guys need to go check out her profile and the way she has written it. It is not like a bio that, everybody asks for your bio or whatever. It is a story about her and what she did and how she connects with people. So it's a really great example. I'm going to go back and rewrite mine based on hers because it just does a really, really good job. So the next question I wanted to ask is like on LinkedIn, there's an influx of, content on employee branding. You're supposed to prop up your employees to speak about and represent your brand. But how can you set your personal brand apart from your marketing or PR, within a company? Now, I'm not talking about like, you're not an employee, but like, or the co-owner, but like if you're working for somebody, how do you do that in your LinkedIn
So
profile?
everybody has their personal brand because everybody has their own unique skill sets and superpowers and their niche, right? So even if you work for someone, so I work with a lot of people who work for another company. And so what I want them to do is focus on the superpower they have, their industry, and even, right down to knowing the keywords for that industry, because you want to sprinkle those keywords throughout your LinkedIn profile too, which is what helps you get found. So when I'm working with people who are doing something like that, I'm like, whose attention are you trying to grab? Is it a recruiter, hiring manager? If so, envision them when you're writing your profile. So talk about the things that you do, but talk about the benefits that you provide. So I was, instead of speaking in resume speak, like in the experiencing section, like responsible for, implemented,
Right.
that stuff, use first person, be conversational, but talk about the features and the benefits that you provided to that employer. So that, and the other thing is what you end up doing sort of by default, which the company would like, if somebody from the company looks at that person's profile, is that then they'll see you as a brand voice for them, a brand ambassador for them, because you're talking about the place you work, and hopefully you're talking about it favorably.
Right.
And then you end up kind of being a brand ambassador. A lot of companies hire me to work with their marketing and sales teams to optimize their LinkedIn profiles so that they can actually be brand voices for the company, and the company is encouraging that. So that's kind of becoming a new thing and a new standard.
Well, it's so funny because there's a lot of career videos on TikTok and Instagram right now, and there's this whole mood of like the employee or the employer is the enemy. You're not, all this stuff. And so you guys have all seen the content. I don't have to get too specific about it, but it's the very much like, don't do this and don't do that, and your company doesn't own you. That kind of that vibe. Okay. And
Right.
I always wonder, like, how are you doing this and your day job at the same time? Like,
Right.
how are you sitting here talking about like your employer is like evil, right, quote
Yeah.
unquote, and then like going to your day job? It's like, I don't get it.
Right.
But anyway, back to standing out online. I wanted to know, how do you, Kate, kick off the process with your clients? So someone comes to you and says, I really want help telling my story. How do you kick off that process, and what would you tell people to focus on as a starting point? And I'm thinking, I thought about this question in terms of, I've got a teenager that's starting his college search, and he's working
Right.
with a college counselor. And so the first steps was this aptitude test to just even think about, like, what is it that he's even interested in. And the second part of it is a personality test of just like, what is his personality? And
Ah,
then, we have all this other insights into like his learning style and everything else. So that's how we've kicked off, like, but that's college, right? That's a college,
right.
which is very similar to career. But how do you kick it off?
Well, I typically, when I work with my clients, I interview them to tease it out. Like that's a part of my
Hmm.
my service offering, and it's also my joy. I love doing that. I love helping people identify their story. But what I do when I talk about this with people is to basically think of, there's several prompts that you can think of to kind of think about what your story is. So one of them, the easiest one, is how did you get into doing what you do now? So, like, if for some reason you went to college for political science and you end up being like the executive director of a nonprofit, what's the story arc there? Like, think about that. And then when you're writing this and you're putting this together, literally, like, do this offline, like, do this as a brain dump, and then, winnow it down into something succinct. So that's the easiest one. The other one is like, think about a time in your life where you had a transformational experience, and something that relates somewhat to it's personal, but relates to your professional or your field or your industry. Maybe you took a gap year and you traveled around the world or something like that. Maybe that experience is something you want to tie in for your story. So you wouldn't be doing all of these. These are just some prompts. I have like multiple. I work in a volunteer aspect with a lot of military members who are leaving their military special operations jobs and transferring into transitioning into the civilian career. And I do
Hmm.
volunteer work to teach them how to use LinkedIn to optimize themselves for this. So for them, their story is like, why did you go into the military? And their stories are pretty fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, maybe their grandfather served in World War II or something like that. One of them wrote, and they're like, I used to play with the little green army men. And
Right.
he kind of talks about like how he used to set up these scenarios, and he said that when use these stories, these are conversation starters. They make somebody's profile that much more interesting.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
where I suggest people to incorporate this into their LinkedIn profiles in the about section at the very top. so that you hook your reader in those first 2 or 3 sentences to grab their attention, and then segue into, what you do, who you help, and how you help them. So it's who you are, what you do, how you help is kind of the formula for the about, but that story piece comes in at the beginning. And, have some fun with it. Ask other people that you respect or who write, ask them for their feedback on that.
Ooh, that's a great tip, and that's right, because a lot of times we have blinders on when we talk to when we write our own thing, and we're like, and it's at least for me, it's hard to write about myself, and so asking other people like, hey, what am I really good at? Because I don't know, and so they'll tell you.
Yeah, our friend Julie Riley, she works over at StreamYard, actually. She did this through Volley, actually, where she asked a set group of people, where she asked, like, how do you think of me outside of my role at my company? What do you, what are my strengths? All this stuff. And I think she asked a handful of people that, and it was through Volleys. And so it was, it was a really cool way to just like, hop on this video app, and like we didn't even have to worry about writing it. I was just kind of like, well, this is what I think of you, and how my experience with you. So there's a lot of ways to capture that information. You don't have to.
And what you just shared about Julie, and I met her last week actually, which was cool, is exactly what I say. Ask other people. Like, think of 3 or 4 people that you trust, whether it's a past client, a current client, a friend, a trusted advisor, mentor, whatever, and say, when you think about me, like, what's something that stands out? What's something, because the way we see ourselves, just like Jeff said, we all hate writing about ourselves. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be seen as braggy or whatever. And it's uncomfortable because it just is. It's hard to, I always say the hardest LinkedIn profile I've ever written is my own. And so asking other people for their insights on you isn't a way to like have them compliment you, up over the top, but it's a way for them to get some feedback that maybe you just don't see yourself through other people's eyes.
Yeah. And the other thing is I think it's important to ask for recommendations, like, so, and not feel weird about it. Like right in the green room before this, I was talking with Kate and I said, hey, do you mind giving me a speaker recommendation? And she goes, yeah, you give me one. I'm like, yeah. And so, and Grace has done one for me. I've done one for her. So I think getting comfortable enough to ask people just like, hey, do you mind, not a big deal. Don't spend a lot of time on it, but just, I'd love for you to give me a recommendation. And I think that goes a long ways.
Can I give a quick tip on a really solid recommendation?
Yes.
Go. Yeah.
So in your LinkedIn profile, you have your skills section. And in your skills section, you can add up to 50 skills. But LinkedIn's algorithm sees the skills as keywords too. So if you, populate those skills, I usually say start out with like 25 to 30 for your skills. They need to be skills, but remember, like I don't put in marketing as a skill. I put in social media marketing because it's much more targeted and it's much more real. And it happens to be a keyword bonus. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. So when you think about what's in your skills section and you think of maybe 2, 3, 5 people that you want to ask for recommendations from, ask each person to write you a recommendation for a specific skill set or a specific project you worked on, so that you're getting a really detailed recommendation from them instead of Jeff's a great guy. I mean, Jeff's a great guy, but getting 5 recommendations of Jeff's a great guy or Grace is a great gal, is good. But if you can get people to write about something specific that you did for them or a specific one of your skills, then you're getting a way for people to tell your story without you having to write a word.
That's such a helpful prompt, because when I get asked for recommendations all the time, I've done one for our friend Ian Anderson Gray. I have one pending for one of my contacts through Restream. And I always ask them, like, well, what do you want me to talk about? I know you this way, right? Like, so that's a good prompt to just say, hey, could you talk about, what you've learned from me as a speaker? Can you talk about, working with me as a marketer? That's a good idea. Because I always go back and ask that. I'm like, well, what do you want me to focus on?
Well, exactly. It also makes it easier for the person who's going to write it, because you're asking them to write about something more specific. We've all said, hey, could you write me a recommendation? Sure. And then they're like, what do I say?
Right.
He bakes great chocolate chip cookies. No, wrong.
He's a snappy dresser.
Shows up half the time on time.
Right.
So speaking of on time, we are down to the final minutes of our show. This has gone so fast and it's amazing.
This is the fastest hour ever.
Thank you guys for all your great questions. I do want to bring up Gary Stockton because, 1, he's amazing, and 2, he stayed to the end of the show. He goes, is it true that with creator mode, you have to have it to see some of the features, like the short video story or the website URL field. Not sure what he's asking, but I mean,
I'm not sure what he's asking either. When you say the short video story, because stories are no longer a thing on LinkedIn. So if you literally mean stories, or do you mean like the little profile video where you can have a 30-second video show up in your profile? So if he can clarify his question.
So Gary, what we'll do is we'll come back into, because you're on LinkedIn, we'll make sure we go and since Kate is on there all the time, we'll try to get that clarified and figure it out. But I wanted to have a little bit of chance for Kate to tell people where they could find out more about her, all the stuff she offers, and just, where to connect best with her. So Kate, what's that?
Certainly you can visit my website, standingoutonline.com, right there on screen. Please, please, please connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. So it's linkedin.com/in/Kate Payne, Paine, and send me a message. I also actually have a free ebook about how to tell your story. It's short, it's sweet, and it's got exercises in it. So if you you can also email me at kate@standingoutonline.com, and I will send you the PDF of that ebook too.
Very, very cool. Well, I'm going to get that ebook for sure. So, Grace, I wanted to bring up this comment from Gary just because he's amazing. He goes, "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound." So there we go.
Aww.
You've got all these fans.
Well, because he's complimented me, we'll give him one. He's asking about the 30-second profile video in your profile. So if you go to Kate Payne's profile, you see that her photo isn't a static image. It's a little 30-second thing. And Vivica von Rosen has it as well. She made hers into like, I think it was an ad for something at the time. Not really an ad, but it was a promo for something at the time. So it is versatile. How do you get access to that 30-second like little?
So everybody has it. You can only access it on the mobile app. And it has nothing to do with creator mode. So anybody has it. Everybody has, it's been rolled out to everybody. That's my understanding. So you have to go into the mobile app, click on view profile, and then when you'll see like a circle around your profile photo with a little plus sign. You click on the plus sign, and then that will open up the app. You can record it right there from your phone, or you can record it in another app and then upload it. So it can't be longer than 30 seconds. And then they now have metrics for it so that you can see how many people have viewed it going forward.
And it's silent, right? You can't use audio or
it plays
sound or
3 seconds silent so that people will see there's something there. And then when they click on it, then they'll hear the audio and the video play.
Cool. I thought it was just silent. That's amazing. All right.
Yeah,
cool.
it's really cool. And I've seen people have their number to call. They've been like a call to action they put in there. So there's like we were saying,
make it about who you are, what you do, and how you help, not just blah blah blah, Kate Payne, blah blah blah, Kate Payne, blah blah blah.
Because they see that in your profile. So just go ahead and get into your call to action. So.
Very, very cool.
And it's the only platform that offers that.
Yeah,
it is.
It's really nice.
Yep.
So thanks for that question, Gary. Thank all of you for all your great questions. Dr. Ello, I see you jumped in today. Sorry I didn't give you a shout out earlier. Martin, thank you so much for the great questions. Chris and everybody who's watching on Facebook and all the different platforms. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube. And as always, this is also a podcast. If you missed any of it and you want to listen to us like while you're out and about, make sure you go to your favorite podcast player. Give us a rating and review. That helps us out a ton. Our next show is on Friday, July 1st. We've got a special guest co-host, so you're going to have to tune in for that. It's going to be at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. And you can find us, as always, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Amazon Live. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here. Thank all of you guys. Thanks,
Bye,
Grace. See you guys later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thank you.
You can connect your Pro camera and then bring that into Zoom via Ecamm Live's virtual camera feature. So you can add your logo to the corner, and you can even add a QR code or swap it out with your social media handle. In fact, you can drag and drop any image or video, even GIFs. And you can add a PDF, PowerPoint, or Keynote presentation here. So you don't need a videographer, a producer, or an editor to level up your Zoom meetings. You just need Ecamm Live.